afternoon, everyone. It is 1:01. We want to try to start as close to on time as possible to reward everybody for being here. It's a wonderful turnout for a great cause, certainly, and a great conversation. It's unusual for us to be able to get this many people here post-session, but we're really grateful for the attendance today. Part of the reason why we are having this today is because we did have a bill. Senator Martin and I had a bill with all of these wonderful co-sponsors, HB 5011, and unfortunately that bill did not pass. It was to get more money into our Connecticut Food Bank, Connecticut Foodshare, for our CT NAP program. It's critically important that we have that. Unfortunately, that money was not allocated this year. As you know, we had an interesting budget situation, but we certainly hope to go back at this next year, and I hope that we will be doing that with all of these co-sponsors and more. Today, we have some brand new numbers that have been released, and when I introduce the CEO and President, Jason Jakubowski, he will be sharing a lot more information about this report that's been released. But I just wanted to share a little bit about my background with the topic. I've been working with food insecure people for most of my life, and the reality is that our numbers go up and they go down, and right now our numbers are really going up. And so that was why we were hoping to get more money in the budget to be able to feed more people. This is an issue that affects every single town in Connecticut. It does not matter if you're a wealthy town or a poor town. You have people in your community that are accessing food services, and especially they are accessing Connecticut Foodshare, maybe a mobile pantry or a pantry in the neighborhood. We will certainly hear from some community partners today. I am really disheartened to see that our numbers for children especially have gotten worse. We now have 1 in 6 children that are hungry. We have 1 in 8 Connecticut residents that are food insecure. 1 in 4 Black persons in Connecticut are experiencing food insecurity. 1 in 4 Hispanic population is experiencing food insecurity. So we obviously have real problems on our hands that we need to address. And certainly it's no time like the present session may be over, but we have to start thinking about the budget next year and how we're going to move forward to help the residents of Connecticut and make sure that they are fed. We say it all the time about our kids that they can't learn if they have empty bellies. But I also, think about your seniors, think about your families. I hear stories, even in Avon, even in Canton, of families that were waiting and waiting to hear that we would have free lunch again because they so desperately needed it in order to provide food for their families. So these are the topics that we're talking about today. Again, so glad to have the turnout we have. And I'd like to bring Jason Jakubowski up because as my former boss and friend, he certainly can speak to this issue better than almost anyone. Jason?
Am I your former friend too? Or is it current former boss, current friend? Yeah, it does depend on the day. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. We're here today to announce the annual Map the Meal Gap numbers. Every year, Feeding America releases numbers typically on this date. And by the way, this is not only happening here in the state of Connecticut, but it's happening in the other 49 states across the country. Kind of a game reset, kind of an opportunity for us to see where we all are and where food insecurity has gone over the last year. I want to start by just issuing some thank yous, not only to our amazing staff at Connecticut Foodshare and the volunteers and the 600 pantries that we have across the state of Connecticut, but to the people of Connecticut that are out there supporting us every day. In particular, we have a great group of legislators here. I think one of the things that can be noted, we, as Representative Kavros DeGraw mentioned, there was a bill in the last session, House Bill 5011, introduced by Representative Kavros DeGraw and Senator Martin, and co-sponsored by nearly 60 legislators. And if you look at that list, and if you look at these people up here today, it was a bipartisan list. Senators, representatives, Democrats, Republicans, people who represent urban areas, people who represent rural areas, people who represent affluent suburbs. Why? Because hunger does not care what political party you're affiliated with, nor does it care in which zip code here in the state of Connecticut you live. That is just a reality. There are 187 legislative districts here in the state of Connecticut. There are families that are food insecure in every single one of those 187. That is reality here in Connecticut in the year 2024. So I thank all of them for their support and all of your colleagues who signed on to the bill that aren't physically here, but especially Senator Martin and Representative Kavros DeGraw. This is something that we, that we had been talking with them for a while about. It's not easy in today's world to drop a bill, to drop a $10 million bill on anything. But the fact that we were able to get them to do this, I think, was important. And I think you're also going to hear today why they're here doing that. I mean, Representative Kavros DeGraw mentioned, what she has done in food insecurity. This all started, and you're going to hear from my friend Larry Ciccarello in a little bit, when he called Senator Martin's his senator's office and said, "Hey, I'm running a food pantry here in Plymouth, and we just don't, we're not getting enough food." And the senator and I went out there. We talked to Larry. We walked around his pantry, and we saw firsthand what was going on. So, our goal is ultimately to be able to fully fund CTNAP, which is the Connecticut Nutrition Assistance Program, at $10 million. CTNAP is a bipartisan program. It was created more than 20 years ago by a Republican governor and a Democratic legislature. So again, there is no partisan divide on this. Hunger doesn't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent. The best thing about this program is the money under the state statute can only be spent on buying food for local food pantries. I can't spend it on salaries. I can't spend it on benefits. I can't spend it on trucks. I can't spend it on building improvements. The only thing we can do with the funds is to buy food for pantries like Larry's and the other 599 across the state. We eat in the proposal that Senator Martin and Representative Kavros DeGraw had. One of the things we also had in there was earmarking 15% of those funds to buy food specifically from Connecticut farmers. So that would you can clap for that. I'm because when we do that, we're not only giving the people in need the fresh food that they deserve, but we're also helping Connecticut's farmers. And that's something that we definitely that's something that we definitely need. So right now we're in a situation where here in the state of Connecticut, we spend about $850,000 on the CTNAP program. It's been that way for many years. You look at other states, Massachusetts, 30 million, New York, 35 million, New Jersey, 85 million. I was talking to somebody from Colorado today, 11 million. We definitely have a ways to go here. To say, I'm disappointed that nothing happened with the bill that these fine individuals promoted in the last session would be an understatement. But we also know that these things happen incrementally, and government doesn't change overnight. Today, I have the unfortunate task of sharing with you some of those updated food insecurity numbers here in Connecticut. As I said, Feeding America, which is now the largest nonprofit in the United States, every single year comes out with these numbers both nationally and at the state level. They use publicly available data from federal agencies, including the USDA, the Census Bureau, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, to analyze the relationships between food insecurity and its determinants, including unemployment, poverty, home ownership, income, etc. So today is a national release, and basically it confirms exactly what we have seen on the ground and what our pantries have been seeing for the last several months. The old number in Connecticut is that there were about 380,000 individuals experiencing hunger. The new number, 470,000. It's an increase of 23% since the last Map the Meal in the Gap study. The old number in Connecticut, about 1 in every 10 Connecticut residents dealt with hunger and food insecurity. The new number, it's 1 in every 8. And most of these are individuals who are employed with one, maybe more, working jobs. These are seniors on fixed incomes, and they're just neighbors of ours, neighbors of yours, neighbors of mine, in every district in the state who just happen to be running up against a challenging period in their lives. The numbers show also that food insecurity does continue to disproportionately impact Black and Hispanic communities. 1 in every 4 Black residents of Connecticut and 1 in every 4 Hispanic residents of Connecticut are food insecure. 1 in every 11 white residents is food insecure. So there's a big gap. The old number in Connecticut, the cost for a meal in Connecticut was about $3.84. The new number in Connecticut for a meal, about $4.27. That's a significant increase over a year. And perhaps the most infuriating statistic of all, and this is the one that always gets me, and I think that gets all of us, the old number was 1 in every 8 children here in Connecticut were food insecure. The new number, 1 in every 6. Think about that. Here in the richest state in the country, 1 in every 6 children don't know where their next meal is coming from. Can't we all agree, like this bipartisan group of legislators has, that here in Connecticut in the year 2024, that is just simply unacceptable? People ask, what are we going to do? Where do we go from here? First of all, at Connecticut Foodshare, we're going to keep and our 600 partner pantries, we're going to keep doing what we do every single day of the week. We're going to continue to get whatever food we can, and we're going to continue to get it out into the community via our 600 pantries and our 113 mobile sites. We're going to keep doing that to the greatest extent. And I know folks like Larry, I know Danny over there. We got a lot of people here representing some of our partner agencies. They're going to keep doing what they do on a daily basis too. We're going to do the best we can, but I can tell you right now, it's not going to be enough if the numbers continue the way that they are. Beyond that, we plan to work with and do our best to have conversations with the administration over the next 6 months to let them know the importance of fully funding CT-NAP when the governor comes out with his next budget proposal next February. And we've already obviously had conversations with the senator and the representative and many of their other colleagues about reintroducing their bill again in the next legislative session. If we had 60 co-sponsors this year, we'll get you 120 next year. That is the plan. We all have a role in this, and I think the numbers are, some people say the numbers are dire. Yeah, they are, but this is reality here in Connecticut in the year 2024. So we're ready to move forward. We're ready to look for solutions, and with that, I'm happy to introduce my friend from Bristol, Senator Henry Martin.
Thank you, Jason, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us as we gather for this important conversation about the latest numbers, and sort of extremely disappointing to me when I saw this graph, and you can see the state of Connecticut at $800,000 and look at the other states that have the amount of money that they contribute to helping out their food share programs. In the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew writes, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." As people, we are called by God in our humanity to share food with those who are hungry. I'd like to extend my heartfelt thank you to the nonprofits and the advocates who are here today and throughout the state for the work that they do. People like Jason from Connecticut Foodshare and Larry Ciccarella from Plymouth Community Food Pantry serve by caring for the hungry. Around this time of year last year, I visited the Plymouth Community Food Pantry at the request of Larry, along with Jason and his team from the Connecticut Foodshare. And led by my friend Larry, who will be speaking very shortly, this visit provided me the first-hand understanding of the challenges faced by food banks and community food pantries in addressing the issue of food insecurity in Plymouth and across the entire state of Connecticut. Food supply, increased need, and constant cost increases are all challenges that food banks and pantries work every day to overcome. In response to these challenges, in some small way, a few of us legislators initiated the bill, sponsored the bill of HB 5011. But in addition to that, we started an Add to Cart campaign, which aimed to encourage residents throughout our state and each legislative district to donate to, asking their residents to donate to local food pantries through their Venmo accounts. The initiative made it easier for financial support to support pantries throughout the year, which we know during the holiday season, everybody thinks about the food pantries and their shelves are overstocked. But it's throughout the year that the need really comes to light. I'm disheartened to hear the numbers of 90,000 additional residents facing food insecurity in our state. Think about that, 90,000 more people. These figures reaffirm the concerns by Connecticut Foodshare. It's alarming to learn that For me, 10,000 people in my district alone are experiencing food insecurity. Recognizing the need for additional support, Representative Cosgrove DeGraw and myself collaborated on this HB 5011, which would have ensured food pantries have the necessary resources to carry out their work. By fully funding the established CT NAP program, we not only would have provided much needed food to the pantries across the state, but also would have supported our local vendors and our farmers. A missed opportunity. However, we'll be back and we'll reintroduce the request next session. And with more sponsors, I'm sure with our advocacy, and that's our role in being our participant in this cause, I'm sure it will be heard. Now I'd like to introduce two individuals who have been making an impact on addressing food insecurity in our state. Please join me in welcoming Larry Ciccarello and Emil Danilov from Plymouth Food Pantry. Thank you.
Larry's a teacher, so he's used to being able to be speaking in front of us. He's I don't know, blackboard behind it all, Larry.
I didn't know I'd have all these people standing behind it. Usually everyone's in front of me. Good afternoon. I guess I didn't realize I would be really preaching to the choir today. So if I say anything mean and frustrating or angry, I'm not saying it to you. I'm speaking to the cameras for the people who should be here and aren't here. Okay, so please accept my apologies ahead of time.
They're used to it. Yeah.
Sorry?
They're used to it.
We're used to it.
Okay. So good afternoon. I want to thank Jason, Connecticut Foodshare, for organizing the event and inviting me to speak. Representative Cavaros DeGraw and Senator Henry Martin for introducing HB 5011, an act concerning funding for nutrition assistance, and the 56 co-sponsors who signed or supported the bill. I can't tell you how happy I was that the bill was proposed, but I was more happy that it was bipartisan. I'm a big believer in bipartisanship, and that unless that happens, we will never, ever get anything done that's productive in government. So I run the Plymouth Community Food Pantry. Plymouth is a town of about 11,600. We have a poverty rate of about 8%. We're in the bottom third of the wealth of the state of Connecticut. Don't let Henry kid you. He's been a friend of the pantry since I came on board in 2020 as a director. He and Whit Betts were two of the people that I called down and walked around the pantry and made them familiar with what was going on at the pantry when I took over. I started volunteering at the pantry about 8 years ago. And so when I became director, I started looking at numbers in terms of who we were serving and how many we were serving. And when I started to put today's talk together, I thought that maybe I would use numbers to try to make my impact, to make my picture. But that would be too callous, really too callous, disrespectful for those who are living this nightmare of food insecurity. And you know, yesterday, I knew there were 1 out of 10 people facing food insecurity. This morning, I found out there's 1 out of 8. 24 hours. Look around the room. As a stat teacher, statistics, I would make my kids look around the room. Count out 8 people. Go ahead. Do it. Count 8 people. There's a chance that one of them may not know where their next meal is coming from. I know, we're all here. We're all looking in good shape. But everyone who walks through my door looks in good shape. Everyone who pulls in our parking lot looks in good shape. My volunteers, the biggest thing I have to preach to them is you don't judge who walks in that door, because everybody is carrying something. 1 out of 8, and we don't know who in this room is that or those people. And that's what we're dealing with. So if I sound frustrated that this issue, that their bill did not get a hearing after Jason wrote a letter to the governor and a letter to the Appropriations Committee, I am frustrated. So I'm not going to use numbers, but I have to start with some numbers just to show you where we were and where we are. So when I started as director in January of 2020, our pantry served 275 customers a month. This past March, we served 648 customers a month, 136% increase. January of 2020, we served 167 households per month. March, we served 265 households per month, 58% increase. Now, that's not as much of an increase, which tells you there's more people in the household, correct? Guess who they are? Children. Okay? 2020, we served about 11,000 pounds of food per month. March, 17,000 pounds of food. And I'm Plymouth with only 11,000 people in town. Take the other 599 partners that we have out there. So yeah, more households are food insecure, more are registering at our pantry, and more are shopping more than once a month. So I want to tell you about 2 types of customers that I have and basically a void that's been created in my food supply. The first customer was mentioned already. It's the senior citizen. The couple that has finally realized that their retirement account, their Social Security, is not enough to pay their medical bills, their food bill, or their rent anymore. So someone has convinced them to come to the food pantry. And they do. The second type of senior citizen is the widow or the widower who all of a sudden finds themselves living on half of the income they used to have. And they have very little choice. And they come to the food pantry. The second type of customer is the family. I am finding parents who are coming who do not qualify for public assistance, who need to come and get food because they can't afford the basic cost of living. Perhaps you've heard the acronym ALICE. Mm-hmm. So these are parents, 2 parents working, 2 to 3 children, single parent working, 2 children, parent going through a divorce, not getting any child support, working, a battered wife coming in with their child, working, 2 parents, 1 parent gets sick, has to stop working, children at home. They're 1 misstep away from catastrophe. I hold my hands up because here is poverty, here is the cost of living. They're in between. They're not getting benefits. So why do they come to the food pantry? It's going to ease their burden. So they sit on the other side of the desk. All they have to do is answer 2 questions. What their income, I show them a chart of incomes. Is their income less than that? Yes or no? Are they a resident of the state of Connecticut? Yes or no? Takes a minute, correct? They're in my office for 15 minutes. Why? Because they have a story to tell. They never expected in their life to be in that food pantry, ever, because they were the people who used to volunteer. They were the people writing checks. They were people going to the PTA meetings. They were the people who never went to a food pantry. And now here they were. And so they are different types of people than we had served in the past. And basically, they may be with us for about 6 months or 8 months till they get back on their feet, till their benefits start, and then someone else will come in and replace them. Or they may be with us longer, depending on what their situation is. There's a revolving door. There's this yo-yo event, I call it. Somebody gets back on their feet, they work for a year and a half, and then they get laid off again, and they're back in. And so what we have to do is we have to, number one, we have to try to communicate to our citizens, basically, what qualifies them to come to the food pantry, because a lot of them don't know. We have a lot of people that we're trying to reach out to that don't know that they qualify. So we are going out to churches, we go out to community events. We send information out through the schools, and we're getting a lot of these people who are in between. I had a parent come in last week and without going into the detail said, I just didn't know I qualified. And at this point, parents will wait. Parents will go without food until their kids have to go without food. When their kids have to go without food, that's when they'll come in. And that's what they'll tell you. I can go without food, but I can't have my kids go without food. And so every time a family comes in, we give them a double dose of food because their pantry is completely empty. That's how long they waited. When COVID was here, we had a supply of food. All the food was just washing right in. We didn't know what to do with it. As COVID went away, the food slowed down, but it was still coming in. And in my pantry, we wrote grants. We asked for people for second-hand, third-hand appliances. I have 17 appliances in my pantry so that we can have 6 weeks of food stored up. I don't have 6 weeks of food stored up anymore. I cannot get meat. I don't have meat to give out for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that's because there's a void. There's a void. We get meat, we get stuff from the federal government. Foodshare has a grocery purchase program, which is wonderful. They go out and buy truckloads of things, and then we buy from them at cost with no charge for delivery. But we're buying things that we used to be able to get at no cost. So our budget's going up now. And then there's this void where Connecticut Nutrition Assistance Program and donors used to fill. And that used to be beef and other assorted things. That's nowhere to be found. I have money that my town has raised. When I say my town, citizens have contributed, civic groups, community foundations, churches. I run a budget of $80,000 to $100,000 but I can't go out and buy meat. It's impossible to buy enough meat to satisfy my food pantry for a month. Can't do it. So I guess I stand here and I wonder, in a state that is always ranked within the top 10 of the wealthiest states of this country, how can we not get a bill to a floor for a hearing, just a hearing, so that you could hear what we have to say? I mean, why? I mean, state of Connecticut needs to step up and do more. And I leave you with one quote by Bono. If you want to eliminate hunger, everybody must be involved. State of Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you so much, Larry. It's you definitely put faces to the data for sure. Up next, we have Senator Derek Slapp from Burlington, Bloomfield, West Hartford, and Farmington.
Ah, nice job. Very good.
Can't be a minute.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief, and that's a cliche in our building. When we say it, we don't mean it, but this time we actually have a lot of great speakers lined up. I first just want to thank the folks at Foodshare, Jason Jakubowski and his team, and you, sir, for all your amazing work. You know, they're heroes. They really are. And what they did through the pandemic was just incredible. And so, you know, a lot of folks have moved on, and we're not thinking about that infrastructure and those nonprofits. They're still here, and the hunger and the issue is still here. When I look at those numbers, I say those numbers are unacceptable. They're shameful. It's a disgrace. And we should do better. The state of Connecticut has to do better. We have done some things to make improvements over the last few years. We've cut taxes on the middle class, the working poor. We've expanded the earned income tax credit. But when you look at those numbers, you realize it is not enough. And we have to do more. So what can we do? A few things I'm just going to lay out. First of all, it's election season right now. And so everybody in the General Assembly is going to be campaigning, and there's going to be many other candidates are going to be knocking on doors and making phone calls. And I challenge all our constituents to ask every candidate, what will you do if elected to help solve this problem? What will you do to ensure that children and our seniors are not falling asleep at night hungry? And they better have a good answer. If not, do not vote for them. Second, we have to make this our top bipartisan priority this coming session. We're going to have many robust debates about a lot of different issues. This has to be number one. We have got to get this done next session. And then it's not just about the $10 million in this bill. There are so many other issues that are connected to this. Talk about housing, education, economic development, school, public schools, right? Healthcare, you name it. School meals, exactly. The list goes on. And in all the different committees, we do work to address these things, but we need to redouble our efforts because we cannot be standing here a year from now looking at these same numbers. It is unacceptable. And I know everybody up here is committed to doing something about it. And together, I am cautiously optimistic we'll be able to make improvements. We must get this done. Thank you.
Up next, my delegation partner, Senator Lisa Seminara.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Seminara. I am the ranking senator on Human Services. I first want to thank Rep. Cavros-DeGraw and Senator Martin for their leading this bipartisan effort to raise awareness about food insecurity. I also wanted to thank Jason and his team for their ongoing efforts. and for those who donate and serve our food banks. As Larry mentioned earlier, I don't have to repeat it. There are a mix of residents at this point who are forced to use all our food banks. Our food and our families are struggling to make ends meet, and the cost of living is skyrocketing. From paying for childcare, housing, heating, to filling up at the pump or transportation, paying for basic needs doesn't leave enough money for food, which has sharply risen. Groceries at this point cost 33.5% more than they were at the start of the pandemic. More than 1/3. Think about that. Think about the cost and how it's affecting everyone. People are really struggling to stay within their budget, but for some, there's just not enough food to feed their families. So we thank Feeding America, a national network of more than 200 food banks and more than 60,000 partners, agencies, and food pantries, and the meal programs for highlighting this MAP, the Meal Gap Study. And we gather today to pledge continued advocacy funding for the Connecticut Nutritional Assistance Program. Because even in the smallest of ways, we all can play a key role in fighting food insecurity in all our communities. And we will do it together, and we will do it in a bipartisan fashion. Thank you.
I would just like to introduce one of our volunteers and customers, Emil Danilov.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank you all for your efforts to provide such a needed necessity as food to our families. It's greatly releasing the stress of thinking what the money has to go for. It's on top of everything that we have to figure it out what portion of the food, and specifically the necessity for the children, the proteins, we have to sacrifice so we can pay our bills and our car payments and so forth. I have been a customer and volunteer for the food pantry for the past 5 years. And I wish that this lifeline for people like us to continue. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Emil, and thank you for the volunteering that you do. It's critically important. Up next, we have our Senator and resident doctor, Dr. Saud Anwar, please.
Thank you so much for everyone who's here to listen, but everybody who's here who's part of this movement. This is very painful, that we have to have a conversation to make sure that the children in our state, the adults in our state should get food. How do you start a conversation when we have to fight for this very basic thing? It's just painful to just think that we have come to this point. I'll just say a few things. I think it's worthy to just mention in this building. I agree with everybody, whatever they have said, and I thank the legislators who are here. Thank you for your leadership. And in Foodshare, I've been your fan, partner, volunteer, and I will continue to do what I can to help out and continue that. But here's the thing. In this building, you will hear in every corner of the conversation, we have fiscal guardrails. And our status in the state is so good that all the agencies look at the state because it's the wealthiest states, and then our ratings from the rating agencies are getting better and better. And we take pride in that. Okay, I would take pride in that. What about the physical guardrails? What about the physical well-being of our citizens? In this room, we are having conversations about the number of homeless that are increasing, the number of people who are hungry that are increasing. I say that these guardrails that are the fiscal guardrails, we'll have to have serious conversation. If we are going to have people without food and children without food in our state, we have to figure out that these numbers which show that we are made of a lot of rich people and our rich state don't matter. These are real individuals. If you have an opportunity, go and spend time in the shelter and have conversations with the people. I had this conversation with this woman right here in Hartford in the shelter. She works two jobs, and still has to live in a shelter. Still is dependent on every meal to get in that place. Right here. And if people are doing two jobs and they still cannot make ends meet, it's a systemic failure. And that's something that we will have to figure out a strategy to see what is it that we have to do collectively to address those things. Now, keep in mind, this is the time where we have ARPA funds. Everybody's happy we have ARPA funds. We will not have ARPA funds. If we can feed the hungry when we have ARPA funds, what are we going to do when the funds run out? We will be fighting in this room, having conversation about fiscal responsibility. We don't have any money. We cannot go up on the taxes. And suddenly the money and food is going to appear automatically for the people. We will have to have this conversation. When we can't do this when there is funding, what are we going to do when there is no funding? That's when it gets real. For us. But it's real for people every single day who are not sure about the next meal. When I was serving as the mayor, before the budget, I would take a week to live on $4.34 a day. Then we used to call that stack. And you cannot live on that. I would sit in a meeting and I'd be thinking that, is there something that I can get to eat somewhere? That was my purpose at times after fourth day. And it's not a sustainable model. That was many years ago. It's like minimal money right now. So I'm sad, I'm upset, but I'm going to use this energy to be stronger in my fight with all my friends, brothers and sisters here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anwar, Senator Seminara, Senator Slapp, who is my senator. I will point that out. So there's a little bit of, it's election year, a little bit of leverage here. You're three. Thank you. And of course, all of the wonderful representatives that we have here that have been with us, Representative Hughes, my old friend, Representative D'Amico, Representative Cook, Representative Warren Bello, Representative Heffernan, who's been here for like a couple of months, and this has already been a major issue that you've undertaken. We appreciate that. And I know Representative Reyes was here earlier today. And I really do think if you look at the list of the two sponsors and 58 co-sponsors of this legislation, you will see senators, representatives, Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, urban areas, rural areas, because they recognize, as Senator Seminara said, that this has to be a bipartisan issue and this has to be something that transcends partisan politics. And I think that's what we're about. What we're about here today was about data, and I'm happy to introduce Christian here. One of the things that came out of the last legislative session was that the state of Connecticut created one of the things that was very clear is that we need data. We need to know and understand what we're doing, what we're talking about. Look, I can come out here, Larry can come out here. We can talk as much as we want. We can give you some numbers, but let's take a look at the actual data, because that's what really tells a story. And I'm very pleased that the legislature, again, in a bipartisan fashion 2 years ago, created this position to look at the data aspect of food insecurity and what different organizations were doing. And I'm happy to invite Christian Duborg up here to talk a little bit. He has been hired in this position. Tell us a little bit about what he's been doing and what he sees from a nonpartisan perspective of looking at numbers and data across the board. So Christian, come on up here.
Go. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the chance to be here. Thank you to all the speakers who spoke before me, and thank you to everyone in this room. It's truly an honor to be a part of this. To very briefly introduce myself, my name is Christian Duborg. My title is Food and Nutrition Policy Analyst, and I work at the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity, which is a nonpartisan commission within the legislature. I've been in this job for just over 3 months now, and I wanted to just briefly, I didn't want to retread a lot of the points that the speakers before me have said more powerfully than I could ever hope to say. But I do want to just briefly touch on and summarize a few things that have stood out to me and the thing that gives me hope in this work. So if one person in this state has to worry about where their food is coming from or has to miss a meal so that their kid doesn't have to, that is a tragedy. If nearly 500,000 people are experiencing that every day, that's a crisis. And I think, as many of the speakers have mentioned before me, that crisis doesn't just stop at being hungry. According to studies, food insecure children are likely to have slower cognitive development, lower academic performance, more absences, more tardies, and more behavioral incidents. So not only do the students have to go into the classroom, but 1 in 6 students in this state are going into the classroom and are being set up to fail, not because of anything that's happening from the teachers or the schools, but their amazing work is being reduced because that student is too hungry to focus on learning the lesson. According to the NIH, food insecurity increases the risk for diabetes, for heart disease, for obesity, for a number of other chronic diseases. Not only does a family have to worry about being hungry, but they also have to worry about getting sick as a result and missing work and having to go to doctor's offices and worrying about their medications and all those other things that make life that much harder. And then other studies have also shown that an individual experiencing food insecurity now is significantly more likely to face housing insecurity in the future, and vice versa. So not only is this food insecurity a massive issue in its own right, but it's also an education issue and a healthcare issue and a housing issue and so many other areas where this legislature in this state does amazing work that is not going as far as it could because of people being food insecure in this state. I think that really is the nature of the challenge. But I also wanted to share what gives me hope. And what's given me hope in these first 3 months on the job, when it's felt like there's just so much to do, has really been the experts. And I want to be crystal clear. I am not an expert. I do not see myself as that. The experts are the people in this room who work in the food system every day. I've been in this job just over 3 months, and I've had the honor of having almost 70 conversations across this state with people working in the food system, ranging from food banks and food pantries to farmers, to grocers, to hospitals, to nonprofits, to people just doing the work in their communities. And I wish I could stand up here and shout out every amazing thing that they are doing and every innovative thing that they are doing. I think I would go way over my time limits. And that is just scratching the surface of what is out there. There are so many amazing things happening in this state. And I firmly believe that if those individuals, if those organizations, if those communities are given the infrastructure, if they're given the resources, if they're given the opportunity to take what they're already doing and expand that impact, I think there is no limit to what can be accomplished. And perhaps it's naive, but I truly believe that we could be in a position where food insecurity in Connecticut is a thing of the past, and nobody has to worry about going to bed hungry or missing a meal, or their children or their parents or their families missing a meal. It has been my honor to start in this work, and I have so much to learn, and I look forward to working with everybody across this state, regardless of party lines, regardless of where you live, what you do for a living, because I believe that this problem is so much bigger than any one individual. But each and every one of us has part of the solution. And if we have the policy environment to make every part of that go as far as it can, I truly believe that that can result in food insecurity no longer being a challenge. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, everyone, for being here today. In closing, I just want to highlight a few things. First of all, what Dr. Anwar said about his conversation with that woman. She's in a shelter and she's working 2 jobs. I hope that what you're taking away from that conversation is that there are no bootstraps that are big enough to pull yourself up by when you are already working 2 jobs and you are having to go to the food pantry and live in the shelter. There are no bootstraps big enough. And that means that the purpose of government is to have a social safety net that catches these folks. That is our job. We did not complete it this year, but I certainly hope that we will in the future. And the other thing I will say is I had the honor of working at Foodshare during the pandemic. As you probably remember, I should say Connecticut Foodshare, because when I was there, it was just Foodshare, pre-merger. But when I was there and we had the distribution at Rentschler Field, and Monica remembers, Jenny remembers, Al remembers, Jason remembers, Dom, who ran it, who's not with us in the room today. We used to say when we raised money that you should close your eyes and we'd have you picture a child, or we'd have you picture a senior citizen who was deciding between heat and medicine. But at Rentschler Field, you had to close your eyes and picture the person next to you, because that's who was in those cars. We had doctors, we had nurses, we had Christians, we had Muslims, we had people from all walks of life. Sometimes you would open up the trunk and there would be a wheelchair or a walker in there. You would have people that were getting food for other families, not just themselves. And that's what this means. When you see a number go from 1 in 8 to 1 in 6, that is exponentially bad. I would love to have Larry do the statistics on that for me, because I'm not the one to do that. But when we think about these numbers, when we think about where we were even 4 years ago pre-pandemic to where we are now, the data should not surprise us, but it should move us forward into action. And I hope that's what you're taking away from today. And just one last reminder, school is almost over. The food pantries and the food banks need you this summer. They need your dollars. They need your donations, because kids get fed at school, often for 2 of their meals, which means that when they are at home, it's now on the parents for 2 of those meals. So your juice boxes, your peanut butter and jelly, your squeezable applesauce, all of those things need to be in our pantries this summer so that our kids will be able to be fed all summer long. It's not just a holiday problem. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the agencies for all the work that they do. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time.